My thanks to the entire State of the Rockies team. This has really been, I've had the opportunity to attend most of the sessions the last couple days and thoroughly enjoyed it, and have actually followed the State of the Rockies project since its inception. And it really is. It's a fabulous program, and really commend this year's team for all the work they've done and the creativity, the speakers in the last couple days, and the heavy hitters from the Secretary of the Interior to the Governor today, the head of the USGS. These are really significant people, and quite an honor for Colorado College to be able to host these folks. So I'm that odd person who's sandwiched in between state speakers this evening. You heard my introduction. I worked for the Colorado River District, the Colorado River Water Conservation District. So what exactly are they? Out of that was born the Colorado River District, and it is our role to ensure that Western Colorado has a voice, and that voice speaks up whether there's a debate going on in the Colorado legislature or among the 7 basin states or the 2 nations sharing the Colorado River, that Western Colorado's interests are represented, period. We have a 10-year running average, as you've heard described. That's unique. We have compacts on our other rivers in the state, but not a 10-year running average. Colorado's river is also unique because it's the only river in the state that has never been administered under the compact. The compact call or a compact administration. The lower basin states have always received their water. They have never said, upper basin, you need to put the mechanisms into place, which you actually haven't yet developed, but you need to put them into place because the terms of the compact say you must assure us a certain amount of water or not deplete, so that we have a predictability, a certain level of predictability for water. Well, that's never been exercised because there has been enough water, and in large part, as Jennifer showed in her very last graph, because the upper basin hasn't fully developed. It hasn't developed as quickly as the lower basin, but that was the genius of the 1922 compact. And the whole issue of water in the West is all about putting water to beneficial use. It's all about making the desert bloom. That was the mission of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And one of the programs I want to talk to you about, but thematically what I want to tell you throughout this slideshow is these are programs that are happening. These are really the embodiment of the 5 elements that are recommended in the State of the Rockies report. There's certainly a lot of criticism that's legitimate for how we have and have not managed the river, but a lot of the elements that the report recommends are beginning, and some are not all that new. One of which, that's not all that new, is the Colorado River Salinity Control Program. That's not snow, that's salt in the picture. That's just natural salts. This is an ancient marine lake. That Colorado Plateau, the oil shale deposits, those are all left over from an ancient inland sea. And included in that sea was a lot of salt, not surprisingly, and that salt is still there. And that salt gets released throughout the basin. Most of the marine shales, most of the geology in that Colorado Plateau is in the upper basin. Most of the most economically productive lands, the highest value crops, are being grown and grown year-round in the lower basin. So we've had this program running, as I said, for about 40 years. And it's a program that costs mostly federal dollars, some state dollars, between $40 and $50 million a year. Not an insignificant amount of money, but go back and remember that the annual benefit is about 376. And it means that we have lettuce on our table in January. So this slide is just this slide has 2 purposes. One is to harken back to my days as an economics major when I didn't even understand the question. I knew if I just threw a graph in, I would probably get a few points out of the whole thing. Well, this says that the program is working. It's not a precipitous decline in the salt concentrations, but it is working. And the last item there that says the salinity standards are not exceeded. Part of our agreement with the Republic of Mexico is that we will deliver a certain quality of water regarding salinity to Mexico, because that salad bowl that we enjoy throughout the winter, where we grow our vegetables in the southwest U.S., there really is no difference. It's the same land, it's the same basin. When you cross the Mexican border, they're growing those same vegetables. We're importing and eating those same vegetables. It's the lettuce crops, it's celery, it's carrots, it's everything we appreciate. So another program that's a little bit closer to home, and it's not nearly as long in history, is something that we're calling right now the Colorado Compact Water Bank. And this harkens to the questions that Jennifer alluded to. Is we've got enough time, we've got that train moving at about 3 miles an hour, but it's not enough to ignore it. It's not enough to say it's going slowly. It's not enough to say it's a long way off. As water managers, we have a responsibility to plan for that train's arrival. And we want to make sure that the train arrives and doesn't head off the end of a cliff. Frankly, because when the engine goes off, the rest of the train goes with it, one after another. Well, how do we add supply, or how do we take away demand? How do we conserve? Well, we're thinking there ought to be another approach. It shouldn't just be one or the other. There are critical human safety uses. You don't want your house in the house. You don't want hospitals and schools going dry. Obviously, there's a human health and safety factor. So we still think they'll be all administered in priority, but we want to look at the elements of the plan. We think that we can protect first and foremost, we need to protect those old rights. Some of them are falling by the wayside from disuse, and we're not fully recognizing their value. We need to work together to preserve those rights, and then we also need to look at what happens when you take that water and put it to another use. You take that hay meadow that's been irrigated for years, you take that corn crop, you take those beans and onions that were grown in the Uncompahgre Valley around Montrose and Delta, and you take that out of production for a year or two. It's not just the farmer who's lost some income, it's the seed manufacturer, and it's the community around that area that benefited from the economic activity. So there are a lot of things going on, and these in fact are just examples, and Eric Hecox is going to have some more examples. But there's no shortage of these kinds of challenges. Compromise and consensus and collaboration, they're very messy, they're very expensive, they're very time consuming, they can be very frustrating, but they do seem to be the better path. They beat litigation, they beat sort of just that rush to the courthouse. It's a little bit like the definition of democracy. It's the worst alternative out there. It's the worst form of government there is, except for all the alternatives. That was Churchill. And there are long-term gains to be recognized over the short-term investment that involves all that frustration. But there will be trade-offs. And I think the State of the Rockies report just begins to get into that. And with even these good solutions, these collaborative solutions, these handshake solutions, there are trade-offs. Professor Hecox mentioned that the Water 2012, the Year of Water, that Jennifer had up there, the Water 2012 is a great resource. It's a great public education piece and a big push on getting people to appreciate water, to recognize that we live in the desert, the value of water, get everybody to talk fluent water is the term they use. There are lots of things going on. Take a look at the water2012.org, and there are materials outside. And just one final thing to show that no matter where you come from, I know there is common ground. This is it. Thank you.